Hi there guys, and welcome back to another video. So today's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a vlog style video as I hit the major milestone of actually collecting the keys to my first buy-to-let property. So I'm travelling from my home in Northamptonshire all the way up to Liverpool. I think it's about 2.5–3 hour drive. But I'll take you along for the journey. So what I'd say is if you want to get into property yourself, watch till the very end. The way I see it is to get into it, there's a lot of elements that have got to be right. So let's just say the timing for you, the actual knowledge element, you've got to know sort of where to start. But the motivation and the drive. But hopefully with this video, I'll go through a little bit of the process involved in buying a property. You'll see some of the obstacles I had to overcome and hopefully give you a little bit of motivation, drive, give you some more knowledge as well to help you sort of work towards that goal and hopefully get into it yourself as I travel up to Liverpool to collect the keys for my 2-bed terraced house.
Let's go!
As you can see, I'm just pulled off in a lay-by at the minute, but the weather's really nice today. Hopefully it stays that way. The process for collecting the keys should be really straightforward as well. So hopefully we can get in, get the keys, and that should go super smoothly too. So I did have to record the next couple of clips separately because the audio didn't work out and it kind of sounded like this. But let's get started with my timeline. So for me, this house purchase started mid-February this year when I was arranging a decision in principle. Now, a decision in principle is basically you giving some basic information to a lender and then they say, based on the information you've given them, this is approximately how much they're likely to lend you. Now, this is vitally important because firstly, it tells you what sort of budget or what sort of money you're working with. But on top of that, it's a great negotiation tool. As a seller who's keen to sell their house quickly, they're going to value someone who has a decision in principle because not only does it show research, but it shows that you're ready to move forward. So once I had these in place, it was time for me to start finding a home or finding a property and start to make some offers. So this involved looking through Rightmove, Zoopla, estate agency websites, but I knew roughly what sort of costs I was going to incur from the transaction. I knew what sort of returns on my money that I wanted, so I simply just searched through these websites, tried to find houses that matched what I was looking for as well in terms of the level of work that they needed doing. So once I sort of had a look in terms of my returns and the numbers actually added up, that's when I'd basically add it to a list of all the properties which I was effectively shortlisting, which I wanted to look at. So this list would allow me to keep track of the properties because it's up in Liverpool and it's about sort of a 2–3 hour drive. I wanted to make sure it was worthwhile. So I weren't going up for a couple of viewings. I wanted to go up for 5 or 6 or more. So during the pandemic a couple of years ago was when I first attempted this, where I had a list of 12 properties and actually the first 8 or 9 calls I made to arrange viewings, they were all under offer. This was one of my first obstacles that massively knocked my confidence and it made me think I couldn't do this. But essentially that's where I had to pick myself up. I reminded myself of my goals. I knew what I wanted to achieve in terms of financial freedom, and I knew that property was the way that I wanted to do it. So this is where I started the process again, made a short list, got them together, made all my phone calls to arrange my viewings, went up to view 6 properties back in March. I made my first offer on March the 1st. And I actually got my offer accepted on the 2nd of March, my birthday. What a result. Have you noticed the further I travel up north, the worse the weather seems to get? Anyway, you've had your offer accepted, now it's time to find a solicitor or a conveyancer. So they will work on the legal aspects of the process. So for me, it was about finding someone cost effective, but also very good at what they do. And some of the most cost effective ones were the ones that actually I used to purchase the house that I'm recording in as we speak. That I was really happy about because I knew that they knew exactly what they were doing. So this was still sort of around about the start to middle of March, but this is where typically they'd start their searches. So this is where they start to look at the underlying risks to the property, flood risk, ground stability, drainage, boundary lines, all these sorts of legal bits and bobs. So this is where this would usually begin. But for me, it didn't. It started later, but I'll get to that. This is where you'd also start to carry out a survey. So this is where someone would come in and actually inspect the property for potential issues in the future. You want to get this done as soon as possible because if there is something that sort of comes up, that you're not happy with. If it's something quite little that you're not happy with, you could potentially renegotiate the price early on. But if it's something major you're not happy with, then at least you won't have incurred too many fees if you decide to back down. But there's 3 types of surveys. First one is a basically condition survey. So this is where it's the most basic level that's offered that just identifies major issues. Next, you have the home buyer survey. This is the most common that's taken out, but it does identify urgent issues in terms of inside and outside the property and also structurally as well. The final one is a full structural survey. So this one's also recommended for listed buildings, but it identifies major issues, defects, detailed sort of advice on the repairs to carry out, potential hidden defects and future issues. They go into a lot of detail. So I'd say do your own research so you know exactly what type of survey you're looking for. This is when I had to face the next obstacle. So the lender was asking for survey after survey, which involved finding someone to do the survey, which involved them collecting the keys, actually coordinating it, me paying them. But this went on for about 2-3 months, which is where I lost my patience. So the base rate was about 4% in March once the original mortgage was arranged, but I actually looked at a different lender and went with a different lender. This meant round about June, the base rate was about 5%, which meant I was paying £30 more a month, which doesn't sound like much, but in terms of returns on investment, it is quite a bit.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
The new lender actually caught up as well with where the previous lender was over the course of the 2-3 months. They caught up with them in about 4 days, which blew my mind. This is where I found out that the solicitors can't actually start the searches until they have draft contracts. So draft contracts are that first contract put together regarding the actual sale of the house, which goes between the 2 solicitors effectively. But they won't conduct the searches until that's received. So July was when draft contracts were actually exchanged. End of July was when the searches started, with an estimated completion of about 4 to 5 weeks, with an estimated completion of the searches for the 4th of September. Now, thankfully, something went my way. They actually came back on the 18th of August, which was a huge relief. Right, so it's 12 o'clock. I've just stopped off at Knutsford Services just for a little bit of a rest stop, but I think I've got about 40 minutes to go until I get there. But in general, sort of late August was spent finalising the mortgage, finalising the paperwork. Start of September, that's when I transferred the money across for my deposit, my stamp duty, my fees. And then after that, it was all about agreeing an exchange date. So it's usually a bit more complicated in terms of if you're doing a residential purchase as opposed to buy to let. But for me, I was buying from an investor, so it's quite straightforward. I just needed to find a time where I could book it off work, and it kind of worked for the seller as well. But we agreed the 18th of September. I think contracts, so contracts were exchanged a couple of weeks ago, so I signed contracts to tie us into the purchase. And then this morning was just basically spent finalising the money bits and bobs. So this morning they would have just transferred the money across to the seller's solicitors, sort of got the confirmation that the money had been paid, and then obviously my solicitors will be working to pay my stamp duty and transfer the ownership of the property finally into my name. And now you'll never guess where I am. So, turns out that although I had the confirmation to say that the keys were good to collect as of about 10 o'clock, the estate agents apparently hadn't received it. So, my solicitors got onto their solicitors, and apparently the confirmation was sent across. So I called them back probably at about 12, half 12, after my solicitors confirmed that with me. Turns out I've got to wait for the keys to be dropped in. I was told about 40-50 minutes ago that they'd be there within half an hour, so now I'm just killing time. I've come to Tesco, plain sailing as usual. guess who decided to go to the beach? So I got a call from the estate agents. Turned out the seller still had the keys, but he was in work with the keys. So I've got to wait till 4 o'clock now. Well, hey, so it's about 20 past 4 now. So a lot later than I was hoping and expecting to get in, but look what I have. So yeah, it's a weird rush actually collecting the keys. Months and months of work. This is the first time I've probably had this sensation of collecting the keys, but I am eager to get in there, have a look at what I'm working with. Bearing in mind my boot's full of stuff as well in terms of like stuff to start decorating, cleaning. So yeah, I'm super excited. I'm just on my way there now. It's probably about 6 miles, so 20 minutes worth of driving, but yeah, I'll keep you posted. And I have just arrived. If you're looking to grow your wealth, grow your passive income, gain your financial freedom, if you're aiming to get rich, check out this video next as I cover 9 habits that you need to change today to get started on your journey there.